Hey everybody, it's Pastor Brian, and we are in part 3 of the series Facing Change. And I'm thankful that you're tuning in and listening wherever you are, whenever it is, on Facebook. And I hope it is a blessing to you. It has been a blessing to me as I have been able to think about and process how to face the changes that we have in life. As the parent wisely told me years ago, that the only constant in life is change. And so it goes that we have to learn wise and helpful ways to respond to the changes that we face. And we've been talking about how to face these changes with faith, courage, and community. Last week we talked about how to face changes when we move or we have a change in our job. So if you didn't get to listen to that, just look in my Facebook feed and the videos and you'll see that video, and I'd love for you to listen to it. But today we're going to talk about facing changes in relationships, like the friendships we have, our relationship to our boss, our relationship with a spouse, our relationship to our kids, our family, relationships to just really anyone in the world. Like, how do we process when we have a change? For example, I had a friend when I was, I don't know, probably 7 or 8, something like that. His name was Bo. And every time I would go to my grandma's in Ardmore, Oklahoma, I would get to see Bo. And one day, just out of the blue, I still have no idea, he moved. And my grandma didn't know anything. Like, no one was able to tell me anything of how he left or where he went. And I lost contact with him. And that was over 30 years ago. And I still have not contacted him. Another one was when I was in middle school. The exchange student you've heard me mention before, Michiru Kawashita. He stayed with us there in Rue Bottom, Oklahoma for 30 days. And I just had so much fun with him. Got to play chess and eat some amazing Japanese food. He brought this seaweed over, and I'd never had seaweed before, and I mean, I still love that soup. Anyway, he left. We went to Oklahoma City and put him on a plane, and I cried and cried and cried just because I loved being around him so much. And that's the only way I knew how to process that change, at that point in my life. So I want to talk about the physical thing that happens when we face a change in a relationship. And I'll explain it like this. It's kind of an interesting analogy here, but in our kitchen about, 4 years ago, we put the trash can on the right side of the kitchen. And it was convenient for certain tasks, but there were other things that when I would cook or do things, I didn't like where it was. It was just you had to walk all the way across the kitchen to throw things away. So I decided I was going to move it. And so I moved it. And it became a lot better in the new location. And we have it in the new location right now. That said, there are still times that even like a year or two after I moved the trash can, that I would still think like, oh, I need to go throw it away. And I would take like a step and a half and I would realize, oh, wait, no, it's over there. And then I would turn around and go throw it to the new location. So there are paths in our brains that are made when we build relationships with people. There are certain routines, there are certain expectations that we have in our brains that they literally shift when we face changes in relationships. So it's really, really important to understand how to face these changes in relationships with healthy and wise ways to process it. Because if we don't process it in healthy ways, these unprocessed emotions that we have in our minds can literally affect our emotional and mental health, which leads to an effect of our physical health as well. Perhaps weight gain, weight loss, lack of interest in activities that we used to want to do, and so many more things. And so I want to try to walk through this about how to process these changes in healthy and wise ways. So for example, one of the big ones that that many of us have faced, and that I've seen people face, is losing a loved one. And the time goes by, and I even hear people who have lost their parents, like, years ago, and they still, some of them want to go to their phone, and look at the phone and try to call or text, but their parent has passed away, and they're no longer here, and that path is still in their head, and in their heart, and in their being, to connect with that person. And then a sense of sadness comes, and we have to process that change in a healthy way. Another one is people who have gone through divorce for different reasons, and getting up to have coffee, going to your favorite restaurant to have dinner, that's no longer going to happen. And processing the weight of that change when those feelings come up is really, really important, because again, the pain that happens whenever we have that change kind of come up in our minds can lead us to really, really unhealthy ways of processing the change. Some ones that I've seen online on Facebook, there's an author and Christian speaker, and she posts about life being messy, and but still God is with us in the pain that we have. And then there was a mother, and then some people who responded to her comments saying, I'm not sure I'm with you on this right now, because I believe, and she didn't come out and say it, but it was kind of understood that she lost a child, and the pain that she was processing. And of course, fathers feel the weight when they lose a child as well, and being able to process that pain in a healthy way. So those are some of the changes, some of the really heavy and weighty changes that we can go through, and I want to talk about how to process it in helpful and wise ways. Regarding faith, the thing about faith is that it's not helpful when we go into these situations with this idealistic belief that we're just going to pray things away, and that we'll get happy again if we just pray, and the pain will feel better, and we can just go on with life. And we can just say these feel good platitudes, and it's just going to just change things magically. That's just not how life works. And so I want to encourage you that when you work through processing these changes that you're facing in relationships, whether it's a friendship, a spouse, with your job, etc., losing a loved one, give yourself some space. Give yourself some space to ask some hard questions. Give yourself some space to feel the pain, to acknowledge the pain, like I'm really hurting right now, and feel the tears going down your cheeks as you talk about it. And don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to show your emotions. Don't be afraid to be human. Don't be afraid that God's going to be mad at you because you're asking a question about why you lost your child, or why your marriage that you had really high hopes for when it started out is all of a sudden ending. You can cry and you can feel that, and you don't have to hurry yourself to get through it, to feel better, to negate the pain, or to let it go away quickly. That's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to process the reality that things have changed. That's the reality, and that's the goal. That whenever you just patch it up with, oh, they're in a better place, or my life is better without that person anyway, whatever, or God had a reason. For everything there's a reason. You just throw all these platitudes at it. It's just patching it up. But trust me, that pain is still there. It's still below, deep down. It's still there. And so being able to process that in a healthy way regarding faith is important. to be able to give yourself space to say, I'm not really feeling too, faithy right now. Like my faith is I'm having a hard time hanging on to things. And having somebody that you trust, that you have a relationship with to help you walk through that, is really, really important. And I'll talk more about the community aspect a little bit. But I want to say is that don't seclude yourself. Don't distance yourself from people whenever you are trying to process a change in a relationship that is happening to you. Reach out to a therapist, for example. And I've been going to a therapist now. I think next week will be session 5, and it's been good. It's been good. And I've really shaped the way I'm thinking about our sessions, in that I'm not going to her to have her just fix my problems or give me some great advice or whatever. Like I'm literally going to talk about the things that I'm facing in life, and as I talk it out, like it's just life is working itself out, and the wisdom comes through the exchange that we have together. So it's easy, as a friend said to me as I was talking to him about the series, it's easy for us to hide behind Facebook and all the social media sites and just post these positive things on Facebook or whatever. And the reality is we are longing for that deep connection with someone to just be able to talk about how we feel. So my point is, when you process it with faith, be careful. Be careful not to try to just patch things over. At the same time, don't throw your faith out the window. Don't just give up and say, well, God, you just weren't there, so it's over, and that kind of thing. Like, process it in a wise way. Ask the tough questions. Ask the really tough questions, but do it in a wise way. And perhaps there are those moments that you do feel like you want to give up on your faith and that sort of thing. And don't be afraid of those moments, but at the same time, don't just automatically and just really quickly and in a moment of rage and anger and all of that, just throw it all out the window. Like, work through the situation with your faith in a wise way. And the second thing is to have courage. It takes courage to process these changes in a helpful and wise way. And here's what I mean. It's so easy to take things personally. Well, they don't like me. They didn't do this and they didn't do that. And, I've been watching on YouTube. I've been watching these videos of people making some physical changes. Just awesome, healthy changes that they're making. And one person said, my spouse told me that when we met, I was not the person now that I was when we met, that I've gained a lot of weight, and because of that, the spouse chose to leave. And the thing that this person told me that really impacted me in this video is that in the beginning of the weight loss journey, it was revenge. That the weight loss was about proving to the spouse that they could get down to a certain weight. But about halfway through, this person said, you know what? It became about me being the best me, and it wasn't any longer about revenge. And friends, that takes courage. When you process these changes in friendship, when you process your change of a relationship like a divorce, or things like that, and you do it with courage and you don't take it personally, it really helps you to open up your thoughts, to think clearly and move ahead in your life in wise ways. An example of that is I have a friend who shared with me just recently, a coworker, and she's a good friend, that her mom is passing away. And today, in fact, if I would have been thinking about, relationships that are changing or whatever in my life, my thinking would have been clouded and I would have had a heavy burden of all those, relationship changes. And I wouldn't have thought about contacting my friend. But you know what I did? And I reached out and I texted my friend and I said, hey, I'm just thinking about you and I'm praying for you. And, I'm here for you as you process this, your mom's health, basically. And so, not taking things personally, even though it may be personal, but just saying, hey, you know what? I don't need to just continue to dwell on this and allow what this person did or didn't do in my life to control the way I think, the way I feel. I need to acknowledge it, let it go, and make some positive changes in my life so that I can be the best version of me, so that I can serve others in the best way possible and make an impact in the world. And then the last thing is community. We're not made to go through these changes alone. And when we lose a family member, and depending on the circumstances, right, it can really cause some massive grief, right? Like why did my parent pass away from COVID? Why did my child pass away in this way? Or why did my family member or friend pass away in such a way? It can cause some unbelievable, unspeakable grief that I in many ways can't even comprehend or understand. But I know for sure that we're not made to go through that grief alone. And so community is so important. And what I mean by community is having the people that you know in your life, that if you go to them, that you can talk to them about the ways that you're feeling and process the grief in a helpful way. That's the community that you need. And if you don't have it, you need to work to find it. And again, to be very clear, this is not about you talking to them so they can fix your life and give you these 1, 2, 3 steps to make it better. As I said earlier, this is about having that connection, that relationship that literally builds you up and encourages you while you cry, while you feel that unimaginable pain, while you are processing the change of being single and you were married, or you lose a boyfriend or girlfriend, or the relational changes that you have, for somebody just simply to be with you and offer some encouragement to you. So community is so important. And another thing that I would say about how to process overall these changes with faith, courage, and community that's so important is having this idealistic understanding of relationships. That can be extremely unhealthy. It can devastate your mental frame of mind. If you have this, ideal world in your head, like I had for so many years, about, how marriage should be this and friendship should be that, and, parent-kid relationship should be this and that, and you dwell on that, and then you think about how your relationships are, and then you're like, well, I'm the loser. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. I'm just a terrible person because, this view up here is who I should be. And I'm like way down here kind of thing. It's like, wait, what? So it's really, really important to put life into a healthy perspective. Of course, you don't go to the other extreme and just like, well, relationships, whatever, it is what it is. We're just going to do whatever and, however I feel and whatever. That's the other extreme, right? So to have that wise balance of working through relationships in the best way we can with God's love and grace and wisdom, that is where it's at. I'll tell you, regarding that ideal view of marriage, for example, I know I don't know if I should say so many. I know a number of people from my college days at Houston Baptist University, a Christian university, where couples, they got married right out of college and they had, a beautiful relationship. Both people were fantastic people, solid believers, and I had a high regard for them. I still have a high regard for them. And to be very clear, I'm not judging them. I'm just telling you that there are a number of them who have had to face divorce, and they've had to face these changes. And, I hope that they are processing the changes in healthy ways, because it doesn't do any good to further damage yourself. It's not helping anything. So, I've experienced that, and I've had to process that in my head of like, wow, these people had a really solid faith, and they did the best they could to have a solid marriage, in the ways that the Bible leads us to have, and it just didn't work out. Right? I don't know their life. I don't know the circumstances that brought on the change of, leading them to say, hey, we need to divorce. So, it's none of my business, right? But what I do know is that when these changes happen, we have to process them in healthy and wise ways. So I hope that this discussion, this talk, has been a blessing to you, and that you have learned that it's really important to process relational changes in a way that's wise and helpful, that you have your faith in God, and that you can give yourself space wherever you are regarding your faith. If you are really strong in your faith at the moment of change, fantastic. And if you are struggling and you have some questions and you want to ask those questions, that you give yourself space to do so, that you have courage, that you don't take things personally to the point that it just suffocates you and pushes you down to where you cannot make wise and helpful decisions for yourself, so that you can live in a helpful way, live in a wise way, and live to where you can experience the beauty and goodness and blessings that life has to offer. And lastly, that you experience the community, you experience that connection, you experience that encouragement, that edification that you get when you are involved in community. And that's another one that I actually didn't mention, is that when you face changes regarding community, you might be involved in this community and you want to be involved in a new community, just processing that. But the principles that I've talked about, they still apply, right? As you go through that change, have people to talk to, be willing to ask questions, and have courage, and don't take it personally for something the community may have done or didn't do, or they should have done more of this or that or whatever. You can't allow those things to overwhelm you and keep you from making wise decisions to make the best of each day. All right, friends, thank you for tuning in. Again, I hope this was a blessing to you, and I wish you all the best. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Next week, we are going to be talking about changes in personal growth. Like when we grow as people, as we learn and we change, like how do we process that, right? Because we can even look back 5 years and go, you know what? I'm not the person that I was 5 years ago. And how do we process when we change our beliefs, when we change, different things about us? That's what we're going to be talking about next week. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of the week. God bless you guys.